Over the course of its long life, Puyo Puyo has built a rich cast of characters, but as with any series like it, not everyone can stick around all the time. There will be a set of characters who cement themselves as the mainstays, who will always reliably be there. In Puyo's case, these mainstays double in most cases as beloved fan favorites, but there is one character among them whose reception tends to be more mixed. Suketoudara. I will admit, I haven't been part of the Puyo community for a few years now, but I feel comfortable saying I doubt much has changed in this regard, and I want to discuss why I think Suketoudara may get some heat and my opinions on it. The first culprit I feel harms him is that he's not a humanoid. This may sound odd, but Puyo has a long history of the humans or characters with prominent human features being the most popular ones, even with some exceptions, particularly Carbuncle and Ekolo. The most recent example of this is the top 50 of this particular popularity poll. It counts not just characters, but Puyo Puyo quest cards in general, meaning characters can be included more than once if they have an alternate outfit or things like that. So we got Arl, Witch, Sig, Ringo, Ellie, Rafina, Draco, Rafisol, Doppelganger Arl, Carbuncle, and Ekolo, with multiple cards charting on this list. Amity, Satan, Shazo, Lemreez, Klug, Strange Klug, Maguro, Liddell, Feli, Ryu, and Doppelganger Shazo meanwhile all chart with one card each. Keep in mind I am deliberately leaving out the quest exclusives such as Atari and Eliza, for the sake of keeping it to the most widely recognizable faces, so I am generously lowballing how much the humans dominate the list. Ekolo and Carbuncle are the exceptions, as I mentioned, and even then Carbuncle bunks with Arl for his second and third outs, and one of the 3 Ekolo cards is his human form. This isn't an isolated case either, and Quest as a whole tends to represent this quite well. It's no coincidence it's Human Ocean Prince, Salt, that gets all the outs and not the fish. It's also not just a mobile game thing, as the series definitely did this from early on when you look at its rosters. Puyo is a spin-off of Madao Monogatari, a comedic take on the RPG genre, and with it come a lot of monsters, and indeed, OPP and Tsu had a very sizable amount of those, but that wouldn't last. I've seen Sega accused of shunning the monsters, but the truth is, the series was already heading that way. A look at Sun and Yan's rosters will quickly reveal that the series was by that point already shifting towards the humans getting the most seats on the ride. If anything, the sheer amount of monsters in the Fever games and 15th anniversary offered a brief return to the roots for the series.
Hello, editor here. If you're curious, here are the ratios for all the main games before we go on. Pause if you need to. And as a reminder, the creatures being solo compared to humans and demi-humans combined is what matters for this video.
Another reason for Suketoudara's unpopularity is his prominence. Outside of the mainstays, there are many other characters who are big favorites or have major cult followings, but not much presence in the series. By contrast, Suketoudara has been in every main game besides the Fever duology, is extremely prominent in marketing, and if we're also counting spin-offs and motto, probably only beaten by Arl, Carbuncle, and Satan in prominence. Things like that tend to breed dislike if the character is already divisive, a pattern seen in other series too, and in Suketoudara's case, it led to him often being considered a fair pick to be cut, to make room for a less recurring favorite. Lastly, and that is more of a series of notes, Suketoudara is in many ways the antithesis of what I have seen make a character popular. He doesn't have an easily riffable running gag like Shazo. He doesn't have a lot of lore to speculate and play with, like Sig is a modern example, or Lagnus for more Moto Media specific lore. As already mentioned, he isn't a human or demi-human like fellow Moto Mooks Witch and Draco. He isn't cute like Satan, or hot like Onion Pixie. Suketoudara simply is a different kind of character, and you know what? That's perfectly fine. Going into what I think about it, I think Suketoudara is pretty cool. Not one of my top favorite characters, but I think he has his place. As mentioned before, Moto and early Puyo had a heavy emphasis on wacky creatures, and Suketoudara in many ways is the final holdover of that era. I don't blame anyone for not liking his design or anything. I myself am fine with his cartoony look in Sega's Run, while being hot and cold on his look in Compile's Run, which has been used in ways that are rather cursed. In general, I don't want to act like variety by itself is a reason you have to like something, but it is something I do feel matters. For instance, Arl, Amity, and Ringo never clicked with me as a protagonist trio, in large part because I prefer the greater variety in personalities and character archetypes of past trios. To be honest, if the whole cast was as magical girl heavy as this trio makes it seem from the outside, Puyo wouldn't have gotten my attention. For a similar example, take Chang and Joy from the King of Fighters series. There are genuine reasons to not like them. Maybe you wanted a different kind of team for Fatal Fury favorite Kim, or maybe you find Choi really annoying to fight against, as many, myself included, do. As characters though, I think they have their place. Their routine with Kim helped elevate his justice obsession even further, and let's be honest, not everyone can be cool like Terry, relatably down to earth like Terry, or attractive like Mai and Terry. And that's okay.
Are you okay?
Creatives doing stuff they just think is fun, instead of manufacturing just what would be the most popular thing, is something I feel matters a lot. The smart Chang and cool Choi striker assists variants in KOF 2000 even feel like a parody of what making everything with the intent of being like the popular characters would be like. Variety isn't saying you have to like a character, but I do think it adds to a roster, and Suketoudara in particular is the last holdover of a part of the Puyo cast that has been heavily downplayed. Suketoudara's lack of big lore, plot presence, or big relationships with any of the mainstays to me is also more of a boon than anything, and besides, if you are gonna put him on trial for not being that plot important, nobody besides those five is off the table for that subject. I fully admit this is subjective, but I am pretty consistently underwhelmed by how little Puyo utilizes the greater cast. In part because all my preferred protagonists get demoted, and in part because a lot of the time the cast does feel unnaturally sidelined. Like, doesn't anyone else find it odd that I is such a small part of the PPT games, despite having such a notable connection to X? Suketoudara doesn't have that problem. He is the kind of character who will gladly do his own thing as a background jape and then happily waddle off to the off-screen bench to count the money he got for clocking in. You do need characters like that, ones that are blatantly made to be side characters, and Suketoudara fits the bill well. Also, let's be real, is lack of lore and the like an obstacle? We all love Doppelganger Arl, but if we're being brutally honest, we know so little of her that all our interpretations of her border on being semi-OCs. On top of that, Suketoudara's small presence, despite always being there, also makes him very non-intrusive. Guess who still isn't in Steam City? And who is an optional party member in Chronicle, meaning you'll never see him speak up outside his recruitment quest. Yeah. Him. The truth is, Suketoudara is a character like any other, he just got lucky to be a mainstay. Similarly, I will never agree with Zodema being a weird choice in 15th anniversary, over Draco and Witch, since he was a Compile mainstay too, only missing out on Yan, and even then he got a cameo in the GBC version. At the same time, I am not trying to lecture anyone. Preferring the humans is valid, and in fact, I am in the same boat. Quest is a good example of this, because it does have interesting creatures and deviations from the base human designs, yet, most of my favorites are ones that fit into that base. If I were to genuinely call this a problem, I am part of it. I understand it's frustrating when a character you enjoy barely shows up. It makes it easy to look at a mainstay you don't like with distaste, but I don't think that's the answer. This is gonna be a bit tangential, but my own Puyo fandom has shifted ever since PPT2 came out. On top of general pet peeves with the direction of the series post the Fever era, The game hit many of the exact wrong notes for me to not be that thrilled to see what the series does next and leave me feeling empty and unhappy by the time the credits came around. Despite this though, I still love the characters as much as ever, and while it took me too long to realize it, being disenchanted with the official lore and stories doesn't need to be the end of it. I can take Sig and say, write about his relationships with characters I miss seeing him interact with. Do stuff with him that lets him be a protagonist on his own again, not just being an asset for a MIDI. Explore new dynamics he could have, like with Rafisol, who is an unnatural existence who knows that and hates it, whereas Sig is largely unaware of his nature and happier that way. Come up with ideas about what Black Sig even is. Think about what him and Strange Klug meeting again would be like, and the list goes on. The point I am making is that as much as it can suck when your own favorites get shafted, there is always room to share your love and explore your own ideas for them. Suketoudara is here to stay, and I get that not everyone likes that, but if you like Dapper, Doppelganger Arl, Strange Klug or whoever, it's never too late to do your own thing with them and let people know what's there to love about them. Just because a story isn't official or officially supported, doesn't mean it's not worth telling or caring about. Puyo Puyo can be enjoyed in so many ways and has done so many different things, and I like seeing people embrace that. Focusing on that, rather than things that bother you, like a certain funky fish, if that's how you feel, does wonders. I know from experience.